All right, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for the third webinar of our Director's Cut webinar series. Today's webinar is titled Fleet Cute, When Fleet Met EAM. We'll be covering how our Enterprise Asset Management solution can help fleet departments work smarter and more collaboratively across all levels of the organization. My name is Colleen Boucher, and I'll be acting as moderator for today's presentation. We're going to go ahead and get started in just a second, but before we do, I want to take a moment to introduce our host, Tom Seaman. Some of you may have worked with Tom before, but for those who haven't, Tom started his career with AssetWorks as a project manager and is currently in the role of sales engineer. Tom's experience includes EAM, organization structure and system setup, user interface, work order management, allocation and assignment module, data loader, preventative maintenance and inspection capabilities, and mobile applications. Tom is a jack of all trades and will absolutely be able to teach us some things today. Just a quick heads up before we get started. The microphones have been muted, so if you have any questions at any time during the presentation, you're encouraged to use the Webex chat tool. You should all see the chat icon on your screen, and if you joined us before, you know how this works. So it acts as an instant messaging tool that you can utilize to submit your questions to me, the host, or the moderator, and I'll be happy to relay them to Tom during the Q&A at the end of his presentation. With that said, I think we're ready to get started. Tom, why don't you take it away?
Okay, great. Thanks, Colleen. I like to say jack of all trades, but master of some instead of master of none. So.
I like that.
Yeah, so we're just going to go through three workflows today that are EAM related, and we're going to talk about how Fleet connects with that. Basically our goal here is to introduce EAM to our Fleet customers and vice versa. For those of you who are not familiar, EAM is an integrated asset management software that helps public works or any type of infrastructure management to help keep your organization or your community safe. Fleet and Public Works both have the opportunity to use the tool because this is the same system, the same database, it's just two different modules. So if you have Fleet, you're simply getting the EAM module and vice versa there. So today on the agenda, like I said, we're going to be doing three workflows using the EAM Connect app and talking about the EAM workflow and then where the Fleet piece crosses over to that. So everything from protecting vehicles and equipment to connecting work crews to bridging the gap between new assets, scheduled maintenance, and reporting issues. So our first example here that we're going to go through, and I'm going to walk you through a video of our mobile application in this scenario, is Rachel's from our parks department. She's actually driving around in a vehicle that's maintained by Fleet, and she's doing park inspections. So that's the EAM portion of it. And so while she's traveling, a rock kicks up on the road, she gets a cracked windshield, and so she's going to be able to use the EAM Connect app to report the problem to Fleet. So in this video here, Rachel leaves her work orders and selects the service request function. She chooses the new service request button in the top right of the app. And here Rachel can search for her vehicle or simply just enter the vehicle ID if she knows it. She chooses a symptom for reporting the problem. And then comments can be added for the Fleet shop to review this. Once we have our comment in, we can also do things like add attachments for photos or files or videos. And once the service request is saved, it automatically routes to the Fleet shop, letting know that Rachel will be dropping off her vehicle for service. So just to kind of recap that, and that was a really simple, short workflow, which is a good thing. Rachel's able to perform her park inspections using the app, but she's also able to submit service requests as it relates to her Fleet vehicle. Because the Fleet vehicle is maintained by Fleet or whatever that location is, it routes automatically to Fleet so that they know the vehicle has an issue, and in her comments that she was going to be dropping it off after 3 o'clock when her shift's over. So now we're going to move into our next scenario, which is John, who's a roads crew foreman. He's actually going to be fixing potholes along a street. And in the EAM Connect app, John's going to be able to track all of his labor, any parts and materials costs directly onto the work order, as well as equipment usage, which is where the fleet piece comes in, because fleet may maintain that piece of equipment that they're going to be using. So we're going to walk through this workflow. So to begin working, John logs into the EAM Connect mobile app and selects work orders once he's in. So from here, John can view on the map where his crew's been assigned work. So he sees a work order, selects it on the map. Once he chooses that work order, he can begin the pothole repair. Once that repair's finished and all their work's done, John can select the task and the Post Labor button to add labor for his entire crew if needed. John can also track additional costs beyond just labor. So by selecting Post Parts and Materials, John's able to post materials to the work order. The parts and materials are actually managed through the AssetWorks EAM's integrated inventory management, just like you have for fleet. And that's going to track real-time the quantity on hand for all parts and materials that John has permission to access. Through that commercial button there, invoices can also be input to track vendor costs to the work order as well. Equipment usage can also be tracked, so that's where our fleet piece is going to come in here. And so I'm able to put in this pothole patcher, or John is, I should say, and be able to post the equipment usage. Notes as well can be updated onto the work order. And when all work's complete, the work order can be finished and staged for review by a supervisor. Now, one of the other functions, because John is a crew foreman, is the ability to manage his crew and input crew time, indirect and direct. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up to that little sandwich button, and we're going to go to crew management. And in crew management, we're going to be able to see in here indirect at the top, which allows me to add indirect time for crews and individuals, such as safety meetings, training, breaks. The work order option is direct time. So since John's the foreman, he can post labor to a work order for his crew, and it allows him to activate, deactivate, add members to that crew. So in case someone wasn't available, he could add someone else in, remove someone, and post the time accordingly. So first off, the big one that you saw initially there was the fully integrated inventory management. So the system allows you an unlimited number of inventory locations, which means bringing EAM on board, fleet can still maintain their inventory location or locations. Public Works and any other group that's going to be using it from the EAM side can have their own inventory, and they can then post it to work orders accordingly, run their replenishment, and manage their inventory as needed. So this is also another point where John, using this pothole patcher in this instance, can actually use the My Vehicle Smart app, which if any of you attended the previous Smart app session, and that would actually allow them to monitor and view any reported issues or maintenance that's due for any vehicles and equipment. And the obvious win there is, since again it's all the same system and it's all integrated together, they can actually keep track and make sure that vehicles and equipment are in good working order before they go to do a job, and that makes their life easier and hopefully also fleets. So we're going to jump next into George, who's our arborist for our forestry example, and so in this example, in his workflow, he's going to be completing service requests and being able to update any information within the EAM Connect app, as well as complete work orders within the system. So we're gonna get the video started here. And just like before with John, George is going to log into the system using his passcode. Once he gets in, he can select the asset management function. And so the first thing we're going to do here is add a new asset record. So that plus button in the top, they'll click that, And you'll have access to a list of templates that you're allowed to create new assets. So in this case, because I'm an arborist, or George is an arborist, you'll be able to come in and say, all right, I want to add a new elm tree. You'll notice the default attributes, the ability to place a pin on the map or select Find My Location, as you can see here. And aside from finding where that asset is, you also have default template attributes. So as you can see there, the different tree values. You also have the ability to take a photo or attach a file of the asset. And when ready, you can hit save, and that will actually save that tree then with the information provided. So next, George is actually going to submit a service request. So he sees a tree that's interfering with power lines, but he can't complete the work at that time. So he selects the tree from the map and chooses that service request icon at the bottom of the screen there. It's important to note that this can be submitted without an actual asset if needed, so you don't need to select the tree. And then you just simply have to choose that symptom there, and you'll be able to submit the service request, and it'll route to the appropriate group. Just as before, you can choose to take a photo of the problem as well and associate that to the service request. The next example here is actually for work orders. So if I select another asset, George may have noticed a nearby tree that needs to be pruned before it falls into the roadway, a certain branch. So he selects the asset from the map and chooses the work order icon at the bottom of the screen. And so once that icon's selected, George can add a title to this work order, which just helps you find that work order for quick reference on exactly why it was created. So we'll just type in tree pruning there. And then you can select a work class, which will help you report on the number of reactive work orders versus your scheduled maintenance work orders. They can go to the task section then, and in there you can choose pruning. After choosing the task, George could post then labor, parts and materials, vendor invoices, and equipment usage, just like you saw in the previous workflow. So, with that, you saw George was able to create a new asset. He was able to go in, report a problem, create a work order off of an asset. But with that, there's other areas that cross over into fleet with this. So, for instance, as an arborist, if they had to maybe take down a tree, the vehicles and equipment required could be managed and reserved through the motor pool module. So let's say they took down a tree then for that work order. It wasn't just a pruning. They could have gone in and reserved a stump grinder through the system. And not only do they reserve it then so that they know it's available for use when they decide to do the work, but then that particular piece of equipment also has the usage rates tied to it, or the rental rates, which would then allow you to post your equipment usage accordingly. So in conclusion, just to kind of recap some of the things that we've spoke about here through these scenarios, is it's one integrated software solution. So you have fleet and EAM. It saves everybody time and money, and there's no need for any integrations there. Also, AssetWorks offers through the app online and offline access. So you could just as easily use your web application, but for those that will be out in the field, they can use the EAM Connect app, and it will work offline. When they regain connectivity, it will push that information back to the system. So just a couple other recap points is, number one, you can submit service requests for fleet and non-fleet assets. So whether it's EAM individuals reporting, issues with a tree that's fallen, or it's, reporting an issue with the truck that you have an issue with, a cracked windshield, or the AC's not working. You've also got the ability to monitor the vehicles and equipment from the EAM perspective and be able to make sure that you're getting your vehicles and equipment to fleet for scheduled maintenance, and also being able to monitor reported issues as well. So hopefully that cuts down on the number of calls to the fleet shop because they're able to then monitor the issues on their own. And then last but not least, like we just spoke to, motor pool reservations can be made and managed then by Public Works or whatever the EAM side of the organization is.
All right, Tom, thank you so much for going through all that with us. I mean, Jack of all trades doesn't really, I think, encompass all the information that you have to share with us, and I wish we had more time today to go through it. So thank you for taking a little bit of time, and I know that people can always reach out to you with questions at your email address. We do have some questions that came through, so we're going to jump right into those, if that's all right, if you can stick around with us.
Sure.
So one of the first questions that came through, someone wanted to know if a work order can be initiated instead of a service request. Is that just a naming convention issue, or are those two different items that have different roles in the system, and can you do one over the other within the EAM Connect app?
Absolutely. So if you saw the kind of the home page when you first logged into EAM Connect, there's different functions on the screen. So there's asset management, there's service requests, and there's work orders. So if you want to, you could simply just go right in and generate a work order and skip the service request.
Great, that's awesome. It sounds like it gives the user a lot of different options in terms of how they need to submit the work that they're doing. So somebody else had a different question about inventory. So you talked about how how wonderful that inventory, that real-time inventory management is. Is that, the person wanted to know, is that an extra module? Is that something that they pay for on top, they have to pay for on top of, or is that included in what they already have? Is that already in the standard package?
Fully integrated inventory management comes out of the box with the system, and with that as well is included unlimited number of inventory locations. So that can be, if EAM comes on board, they can have an unlimited number of inventory warehouse locations, stockpiles. You can still maintain all your fleet inventory locations, as well as mobile inventory. So whether you've got a mobile truck that goes out and does road repairs, as well as the different, road crews and different public works crews can also have their own mobile inventory. So there's no limit, and that is part of the out-of-the-box system.
Wow, that's wonderful. Along a similar vein, and this is more about capacity and the ability of the database to maintain all of this information. You talked a lot about being able to upload files and choose photos and sort of attach additional supplemental documentation to these work orders or these service requests. To your knowledge, is there a file size limit to those photos, or let's say if somebody wanted to take a short video and sort of show a survey of what they were looking at as additional reference for that work order or service request? Do you know if there's any file size limits, or is it sort of available whatever they're uploading?
I'm not aware of any file size limits. I would say that it would come down to the device storage that you have would be the real limitation there. But I'm not aware of any restricted file size attachment. It's more or less, if you're saving it locally to the device, does your device have enough storage for that?
Sure, that makes sense. Okay. Sort of changing tracks a little bit. Someone wanted to go back to when you were talking about the attributes. They had a question about whether those attributes are, I think you mentioned that they were preset, and so the person wanted to know whether those attributes are customizable, if you can sort of change how they're set and what they say, or if they're stuck with what has been preset in the system.
No, so you actually get to create those yourself. So we understand that every customer has different workflows. They kind of do things differently. They track different attributes on maybe even like assets. So with that said, you get to not only create your own attributes, but then what it allows you to do is take the attributes that you want by asset type and standardize them. So anybody going forward to say, hey, I'm going to add this elm tree like I showed in the example, now that if you want the diameter at breast height on every tree in your city, you're going to make sure that is standardized, not only the attribute, the way it's labeled, but then any new tree added going forward is going to have that required attribute field.
Wow, that's an amazing capability. I think that'll really be useful for the different departments in working together and making sure that those attributes are unique and customized to what their operation has to deal with. So we're just going to keep rolling on the questions. I hope you'll hang in there with me, Tom. So someone wanted to know, how does EAM Connect know where to route service requests? Is that, again, something that's set up or copied over from how their fleet fleet system may be already set up, or is it something that's done at setup or at go live? Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. So for those of you who are familiar with a little bit of the setup and behind the scenes of the fleet application, any asset, vehicle or equipment, is going to have a required default repair location. That's actually what routes the service request. So in that example, Rachel was doing the park inspections. She had to report the cracked windshield on her vehicle. She simply just selected her vehicle, put in what the problem was, and then just saved it, and that automatically routed to, and again, it doesn't have to be, if you had multiple locations and there was a default location that Rachel's vehicles and equipment would go to, it would route to them. Or if you only have one location, obviously it would default to your main fleet shop.
Okay, so it sort of inherently or intuitively knows, the closest location where this request should go to. That's helpful, so that you're not, putting that much more wear on the vehicle or on the asset type that's been damaged, that needs repair. You can get it repaired as quickly as possible. Okay, I wanted to know if you could tell us any more about what may else be included with EAM Connect. So, EAM Connect sounds like an amazing tool, but when a customer is looking to purchase that, are they getting anything else? Is there, sort of a larger product that they might get more? You mentioned the smart apps. How would a customer be able to get EAM Connect and smart apps in one go?
Yeah, so good question. So there's actually a lot that you get with this, way more than meets the eye on just the 3 workflows that we did. So first off, with EAM Connect, it will work on Android, iOS, and Windows devices. With that, you get the following functions, and I may miss some of these. There may be a few that sneak through, but off the top of my head, one, you get asset management. You get time card, which allows you to view and edit any labor postings, direct or indirect. You're able to access service requests, work orders as a function. You also have test results. For those of you who may or may not be familiar with test results, it's used by fleet for things like, I want to capture the actual tread depth so that I can then report on that tread depth and do tire wear reports, let's say. EAM also uses that to update things like the attributes. They also use it to do things like measurements and readings for themselves. That is also a function on EAM Connect that allows you to basically capture that information without requiring a work order. There's also inventory count function that comes with EAM Connect, so you can do inventory counts on there in a disconnected environment. And then there's another function on there that is part of our allocation and assignment module, and I won't get too down the rabbit hole with that, but basically allocation and assignment allows you to assign, vehicles and equipment, uniforms, laptops, you name it. If you've got a police department, weapons, gear for fire departments, you name it, but it allows you to do assignments. And with the EAM Connect app, if you have allocation and assignment, you get something called assignment verification function through EAM Connect. And that actually allows you to say, okay, we've assigned the following items to this person or to this location or to this asset, and we now just want to do a check. Basically, is it there or not? And go through and basically take an inventory on assigned items. And so that's what that is. I think that was all of them off the cuff there, but those functions are all able to be permissioned accordingly to users based on their user group permissions. So if you don't want everyone to have all of that or only certain functions, it's very flexible as far as how you permission it out. Now the other thing, but wait, there's more. That's my infomercial tagline here. You're able to actually also use our smart apps. So I don't know how many of you sat in on our smart apps demonstration. However, the smart apps, it does need connectivity, so either cellular or Wi-Fi connection. But those smart apps are typically more driver-centric. And with that, you have the ability to do inspection checklists. So it's basically test results that allow you to do things like pre- and post-trip inspections, basically inspections that don't require work orders. There's also the My Vehicle function that I mentioned in the demo here, and that allows you to go in and look up a vehicle or a piece of equipment, and you can do things like report a service request, view previously reported service requests on the asset, be able to see any scheduled maintenance that's due on it, enter meter readings if you want to. So that's some of the functionality. For those of you who have the motor pool module, you would get in what I referenced in the other workflow here, you would actually have a Reservation Center app, and that would allow users from their mobile device to reserve vehicles and equipment from their phone. There's also a Dashboards Smart app, which allows you, if you're using dashboards, those key performance indicators, those KPI gauges and charts that you have, you can actually view them on a phone as well. Like EAM Connect, Smart Apps is actually available on any device. So either Windows, Apple, Android, it'll work on all of them. The only difference is Smart Apps, you need connectivity, and with EAM Connect, it is not required. That was my short story long.
Definitely short story long, but I appreciated it, and I'm hoping that everyone who's on the line with us did as well. I think we're going to wrap it up there. We want to make sure that we're keeping to the half hour that we promised everyone. These are bite-sized demos that we're trying to do. So thank you, Tom, on behalf of AssetWorks, for sharing your expertise. It's always a pleasure to have you with us, and I know that I always learn a lot when I'm on a webinar with you. So thank you for taking the time to join us. Thank you to our attendees who joined us today. I hope that you've had a chance to attend the previous couple webinars. We do have just one more left with Deborah Wolf. And we'll be debuting our Fleet Metrics tool, which is a benchmarking tool that we're very excited about, that we think can bring a lot of value to your fleet operations and help you really see where you land among your peers in the fleet world. So thank you again, Tom. Thank you to our attendees. Any questions that we didn't get to, we will follow up with you directly offline, and we'll wrap it up there. Thanks, everyone, and hope you have a nice afternoon.